Hello, beautiful people of the world. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Vallen, and you are watching Random Brown Girl. So, along this spiritual growth journey that I've been on, I have discovered that I have spirit guides and I can talk to them, I can hear them, I receive messages from them often. And there's one particular message that I want to share with you that I received from them maybe 3 years ago. So a little background story. I had been living in Vietnam for about a year and a half, 2 years. Fun fact, when I first moved here, I left my iPhone in a cafe, and like half an hour later, I realized I didn't have my phone. I went back to the cafe and I didn't even have to ask. Like, I came in through the door and they were like, "Oh, hey, here, you left your phone." Like, that's how people here in Vietnam are. That's how honest they are. And that's how safe it is. So I walked around late at night by myself all the time. Whereas, I would think twice or several times about doing that back in New York or anywhere really in the world. When I lived in Europe, depending on the area, same thing. So one night I was coming home around 2, and first I called a Grab, which is a bike taxi, because most people drive motorbikes here in Vietnam. And then I decided, you know what, it's just 10 minutes. It's 2 a.m., but whatever, I'm just gonna walk it. So I started walking, and I'm walking down the street, and I feel someone kind of do this to me on my left side as I'm walking. And I look over, and it's these 3 guys on a motorbike had just driven past me, and the guy in the middle grabbed at my waist. And I was like, what the hell? And then I gave him the finger, and I was like, you touched me or whatever. And then he kind of looked at me and then turned back around. So anyway, I continue walking. In my mind, I'm like, what was that? That was weird. I'm thinking it's just some kids, goofing off or whatever. So I keep walking, and then I get very near my apartment, and they were waiting for me around the corner, and they came zooming by, and they grabbed my bag, which was on this side of me, on my right side, and they tried to grab my bag from me. But I, being a New Yorker, I always have my New York City hold on my bag anyway, no matter where I am, no matter how safe I feel. So I had a good hold on my bag. When they tried to grab it, I just fell down, and I hit the ground, and I hit my head, and I blacked out. And then I came to as I saw them driving further on up the street, and they were continuing on. And then I just, kind of make sure I had everything. My glasses got smacked off of my face. I found my glasses, and then I just ran, home, and, went up the stairs. And as I'm coming up the stairs, I realized like how badly injured I am. There was no skin on my back here. Obviously I had hit my head and blacked out for a few seconds. I came inside and proceeded to try to sleep, and I bled all over my sheets and I couldn't sleep very well because I was bleeding so profusely. And I should have been smarter. I should have gone to the hospital immediately and reported it immediately, but I'm just like, I'm fine, I'll be fine, because that's part of my personality, being the strong person, always being strong. So after a couple of days of just like not healing and feeling worse and worse and not being able to sleep well because I was in so much pain, I asked my landlady, who is also a friend, to help me out and help me get to the hospital. So her husband drove me to the hospital, got everything checked out. I didn't have a concussion, thankfully, just banged and bruised up, and they kind of, dressed my wounds properly because they were getting infected because I wasn't doing a good job of taking care of it. Super cheap medical services here, by the way, which is another reason why I love living here. Anyway, so fast forward to, a couple weeks later, I was starting to develop agoraphobia. I was afraid to leave my apartment, and I work as a singer. I'm a performer. So I have to go outside to work. I can't work from home on my laptop or whatever, that's not an option for me. And so I was kind of freaking out, and luckily I live in a great community where we all really love and support each other. And I immediately, after all of this happened anyway, I put a post on Facebook like, ladies, hey, be careful at night when you're walking by yourself. I know it seems really safe. And I haven't heard of any stories of anyone, but this happened to me, so be careful. And then all these other stories started coming out. Not a ton of them, but a few here and there that no one had shared for whatever reason over the years. So that was a good thing that I kind of was brave enough to share that. And so other people were able to share their stories as well. And it kind of started like a forum where the ladies of the Dang look after each other and report things that are strange, or if there's any harassment or anything that looks creepy or weird or wonky or unsafe or whatever. So anyway, being part of this lovely community, someone who was a working therapist offered to give me free therapy. He was one of my fans, actually. He would come to our shows often. And so I started doing talk therapy with him. And one day he was just like, you know, we can continue doing this, but I know you need to get back to work relatively quickly. And this is going to take a while. It will work for you, but it will take a while. But since, you know, I know you need to feel comfortable going outside relatively quickly, why don't you try hypnotherapy? And I was like, sure. I don't know if I can afford it, but he was like, you know, I have a friend, he's a hypnotherapist. I will talk to him and we'll work something out. So long story short, I ended up getting free hypnotherapy from his friend, the licensed hypnotherapist, and it worked. And was able to get back to work in record time without having to do weeks or months of talk therapy, which was amazing. So anyway, as I was going through this experience of healing from this trauma of, you know, an attempted mugging here in a place where I felt the safest I've ever felt in my life, I'm, you know, working through this trauma emotionally and trying to understand why this happened, because I believe that everything happens for our highest and greatest good. And I just couldn't understand why this happened to me, why it's, you know, why did my intuition alert me, or why didn't my spirit guides shout out and say, hey, don't go that way, or take the grab bike instead, or whatever. Asking my spirit guides to explain themselves, they told me everything is an act of love as it's intended to bring you closer to God. And I lost my, you know what? I was like, oh, hell no. Hell to the no. There's no way that everything that happens to human beings is an act of love and it's intended to bring us closer to God. I reflected on my life at that point and I was like, I've been through so much crap. I've been through, you know, a traumatic childhood. I suffered depression alone for years and years and years. I was abandoned by my father. I was, you know, sexually assaulted. I was molested as a child. Like, a lot of shit happened to me that was awful that I had to work through. And I could not believe that all the people in the world that are suffering these things that I had been through or worse, that they were going through that because those things are an act of love that's intended to bring them and us closer to God. And I just shut communication with my spirit guides down. I was like, I don't want to hear from you anymore. I don't want to talk to you. I don't know what you guys are on about, but this is BS. You know what I mean? So, that statement stayed in my mind. And once I got past the anger and I thought about it more and I continued my healing process and I continued reflecting, and I had gotten back to work and I was getting back to my life, and I kept thinking about this and thinking about this. What does this mean? And I started to understand, like, everything being an act of love doesn't mean that it's pleasant. But when you get down to the core of that statement and what it means, even if you don't believe that everything happens for a reason, even if you don't believe that everything happens to serve our highest and greatest good, which I do believe that. So honestly, when they said that to me, it was in alignment with those beliefs that I had reprogrammed myself to live by. And so having the root of those beliefs, it made sense for me. But even if you don't have those beliefs, still the core message is everything that happens to us is intended to bring us home to ourselves, is intended to bring us home to whatever higher power you believe in, love, God, source, the universe, blah, 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 right? So the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? All of those things that happened to me in my childhood, in my early adulthood, my teenage years, all of that, it did lead me back home to myself. It did lead me back home to love. Even being mugged helped me understand that even though I'm away from my family and alone in this country, that I wasn't alone. So many people came to support me. And I wouldn't have asked for help. I didn't ask for help from a lot of people. A lot of people just checked up on me and would come over and help me dress my wounds. People were bringing me food. A friend of mine did Reiki on me. People just came and chilled and sat with me. Like, I never had a moment where I had to be alone unless I wanted to. There were so many supportive people in my life. And then I realized, like, actually, that's part of the reason that happened to me. So that I would be forced to rely on other people and let people into my life in a way that I wasn't used to, in a way that I hadn't before, in a way that I had been there for other people. I needed people to be there for me in that way. And if I hadn't been forced to by this traumatizing event that happened to me, I wouldn't have forged those relationships. I wouldn't have felt that support that I never had felt in my whole entire life, that was being offered to me that I had not recognized because I was just going on about my life as I always had. But that event, that attempted mugging that happened to me, forced me to have to rely on other people. I couldn't do it by myself. So I had to ask for help. I had to allow other people to support me. And that experience helped me in so many ways, not only in connecting with others, but in healing those traumas that kept me from allowing people into my life and allowing myself to rely on others and allowing myself to ask for help. So once I realized that actually that experience did bring me closer to God, it brought me closer to love, which to me is the same thing. It brought me closer to being the best version of myself, aligning with my highest potential, aligning with my highest self. And I got it. Everything is an act of love. It's intended to bring us closer to God, but it will only do so if we allow it. That's the part that I figured out on my own that they didn't tell me, they being my spirit guides. And I really believe that that statement is true. And another thing I believe is that our beliefs create our reality. So up until the point where I believe that statement, it wasn't true for me. Everything wasn't an act of love intended to bring me closer to God until that moment of enlightenment where my spirit guides shared that statement with me. And then I had to, resist it as long as I needed to, because love allows and gives. My spirit guides allow and give me the space and time I need to process things, free from judgment, criticism, or blame, right? And I was able to take all the time I need to understand that statement and that sentiment. And I came to hold it nearest and dearest to my heart more than any and every belief that I hold. It was difficult to understand at first, but once I wrapped my head around it and really reflected on it, and I know it's going to be controversial. There are some of you out there that are going to be like, that's insane, I completely disagree, and that's fine. We're here to have a conversation and a discourse, but it's food for thought, and that's what I'm here to give you. I'm here to give you food for thought. So I really want you all out there in YouTube land to reflect on that statement and think about how it resonates with you. I'm really interested to know what you think, how you feel about it. So please comment down below your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, opinions, anything you want to share with me, any questions you have. And I look forward to reading those comments in the comment section. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope I gave you some food for thought. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Love and light. Smooches.